Hey, welcome back. Jason here with another game. And what I've got is Storm over Arnhem. This came out in 1981, I believe. And if you were like me, you saw a movie called A Bridge Too Far, became inspired and sought out something, anything that you could put on the table and recreate that battle. Options being somewhat limited because of the times being what they were. You pretty much really only had this, and I'm sure there were a couple other niche peripheral choices you could grab up, but really bang for your buck, etc. Playability. This was the Arnhem Bridge game. I guess you could argue this also dealt with the subject, but in a more scoped out view. This would be more strategic, while Storm over Arnhem is, that's right, more tactical. This was a Courtney Allen game. Big fan of his, area movement, as you could probably see by some of the map, or because you're already familiar with the game. And what I've done is expanded the map. I'm nutty for that. I don't know what the deal is. It plays just fine on the map that's provided in the game. But I take some sort of twisted pleasure and enjoyment out of blowing the ink out at the library and printing out 30, 40, 50, 8.5 by 11 sheets and piecing them together like a puzzle, cutting them, fitting them. And the end result is rather rewarding. So that's what we have here. Enough of me, I'm going to bring it down to the table. I won't be able to capture all of the map, so what I will show is the primary area of play being this, and we have some perimeter zones which have German units on them off camera here that will come into play at some point. But again, the primary area of play is this area right here. Let me see if I can, let's do right like that. Alright. So, if you guys feel like sticking around, make yourselves comfortable, grab a drink. I got my prerequisite Guinness. Yeah, we'll kick the ball around here for a little bit. Again, this is not something I will play from start to finish for you. This is something that I will start in order to give you a sense and feel for the flavor and flow of the thing. So before we get to the game proper, let's look at some of the rules here. You're looking at 15 pages rules, but 2 pages are historical notes, and 2 more pages are complete orders of battle for the setup. Another page is the designer's notes. That leaves 10 pages, of which, let's see, 1 is the cover, so that leaves 9 pages. So there's really about 9 pages of rules here. It's going to go over the components, everything that should be in the box. I didn't see a box and a lid listed, but I guess, I got the box and the lid, so we're good. And it says it's a 2-player game, but this can be soloed if you're fair with yourself. We know what the subject matter deals with. Brings us to the map board. We're looking here at 30 separate areas of various shapes and sizes. Movement between areas is allowable, other than if there's certain areas that are only adjacent via adjoining corners. Movement to and from those corner areas is not allowed. And then we have a number of victory point areas being, and I will point at them here. That's 1, there's another one, that's 4, 5, and 6 victory point areas all along the main road that lead up to the the bridge itself. We've got a turn record track, a victory point track off camera, some artillery boxes for your artillery counters when not in use, retreat priority chart, and a random events table all on map. We have color-coded setup paint by numbers, if you will, to aid in placement of the initial start of the game, which is fairly self-explanatory. You will look at your order of battle and set up accordingly. And I like that, you know, the completely 100% free setup when it comes to a game. I don't know that I like that. It makes me think the designer was too lazy to bang out the historical particulars regarding where troops were. I don't mind some of it being free setup, which is in fact what this is. You'll set up some according to pre-designated areas, and then some of the others you'll set up freely. I think that's a nice blend. So that covers game setup. There's a sequence of play, as you might imagine, consisting thusly reinforcement and reformed unit phase. I don't know that I need to go into that for you. Random events determination phase, and movement / fire phase. So you can move or, so both players alternate movement and or fire impulses. And then you have this tactical advantage shit, and whoever owns this goes first. This should be British. And then you alternate back and forth. Then there's the close combat phase, followed by the victory point determination phase. Then it goes into occupation limits, or for lack of a better term, stacking. You can stack a maximum of 10 infantry and 3 armor in an area, and any number of units, regardless of type, may occupy a perimeter zone. I know that you can bump. Here's a perimeter zone, for instance, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, 2 of which, again, over here, have German units awaiting to enter the map. That brings us to the movement fire phase. During a friendly impulse, a player may either move or fire any number of uncommitted units. Now, when a movement moves or fires, it becomes committed, and it flips to its alternate side, which is white, to help easily denote having been committed. Movement fire phase. All right. That brings us to. This brings us to kind of a, and this might be, excuse me. The rules are pretty straightforward, but inevitably you're going to come into some gray areas, and here's a gray area if I can read it to you. It says, if a player chooses to fire more than 1 unit from an area, he may do so in any order he wishes. The only requirements are that any one defending area may be subject to of only 1 fire attack per impulse. And they list an exception that deals with anti-tank units, and no more than 6 infantry units, which may or may not include headquarters units, plus 1 additional headquarter unit, plus 3 armor units may fire into the same area during the same impulse. Exception, and that deals with anti-tank units again, and I want to say that I'll do my best to interpret that. I think that could be cleaned up pretty good, a lot better than the way they have it laid out here. Other than that, the rules are fairly straightforward, and for some of you that may be straightforward as well, but for me that seems a little tacked on fiddly. We've already talked about uncommitted and committed. When it comes to armor units, they may only be fired at by infantry units occupying the same area, or anti-tank units that are, they can fire if adjacent, I believe. And then of course artillery can fire from anywhere at at armor. Fire attacks are resolved by determining the attack value of the firing unit or units and comparing it with the defense value of the defending unit. So the attack value, or AV, is equal to the attack factor of any one firing unit of the attacker's choice, plus an indeterminate amount of being the sum roll of 2 dice, plus 1 for each additional firing unit beyond the first, plus 1 if 3 of the firing units have the same lower organization or are from the same group. And then defender, or defense value rather, referred to as DV, is equal to the lowest face-up defense factor of the group being fired on plus 2 dice, plus 1 if the firing unit is in an adjacent area, and this does not apply to artillery, plus 2 if the firing unit is in an adjacent area during a night turn, also not applicable to artillery. Fire attack is resolved as follows. If the attack value is equal to or less than the defense value, there's no effect. If the attack value is greater than the defense value, the difference between the attack value and the defense value is the minimum number of casualty points that must be removed from that area or zone by the defending player. And these can be satisfied by either retreat or, let's see, or casualty point. Let's see, each unit eliminated is worth up to 3 casualty points, 4 for armor, and I believe you get 1 casualty point for a retreat, a unit that retreats. Then it talks about the restrictions regarding retreat, what you can and cannot do. Then it brings you to the close combat phase. When you start the close combat phase, you're going to flip all your units to the uncommitted side and proceed accordingly, which we'll get to when we get to it. And it talks about your strategic movement zones, victory point determination phase. Only the Germans are going to keep track of the accumulation or subtraction of victory points as those occur. And it gets into armor units, and there's specific rules regarding that. Those being armor units may only be attacked by infantry units occupying the same area or zone, and or anti-tank units occupying the same area, zone, or an adjacent area, or just simply by artillery. Armor units of the same group type, let's see, as infantry units attacked from an adjacent area by non-anti-tank units, must ignore any attack result during the movement fire phase. They may not be used to satisfy the casualty point losses inflicted on that group or as a base for the defense value of the group. Although they may elect to voluntarily retreat out of an area in which infantry of the same group has just retreated or suffered losses. During close combat, all non-screening German infantry in the same area as armor units must be attacked before any non-anti-tank unit may attack an armor unit. As for close combat, armor units are the only units which may retreat into an enemy infantry-occupied area, although they may do so only if they have no other choice. Then our anti-tank units, of which we only have 2 of, and those are down here. Those may never be used to fire at infantry units, and therefore have no attack factor against infantry units. They can never be included in attacks of any kind against infantry units, not even in the close combat phase. Alright, fair amount of rules regarding that. Then it goes into artillery. Artillery counters represent the fire from off-board indirect artillery fire. Each artillery counter is placed in the respective player's artillery box, which I have done so off-map, or off-camera rather. The action, let's see. Each player may place an attack with an artillery counter during any friendly movement fire impulse, provided he has an uncommitted artillery remaining. This action takes the place of a normal movement or fire impulse on the map board. An artillery counter may only be used once per game turn. After an artillery attack, return the counter to its artillery box. You can use artillery in a zone or any area adjacent to an area occupied by a friendly uncommitted headquarter unit capable of calling in that artillery. Artillery counters may only be placed in areas adjacent to an uncommitted headquarter unit of the proper organization. In addition to all other requirements for artillery, the British must roll a 4 or less on one die before placing his artillery counter. Failure of this die roll prevents the British player from using his artillery counter for that complete game turn and still counts as use of the British movement fire impulse. Etc., etc. You got night turns here, which are identified by the turn record track. Those would be turns 2 and 8. And you can know that because instead of being white, those squares on the turn track are grayed in. Reinforcements and random events. You can set fires. That is to say, the Germans may attempt to force British units out of their positions within the same area indirectly by setting fire to the buildings they occupy. If successful, the British units do not leave the area, but some or all of them become committed and may have to retreat out of the area eventually if subsequent fire impulses succeed in inflicting casualty points on those committed units. British reformed units are a kind of reinforcement, if you will. You're going to randomly determine based on casualty points at the end of the turn, or rather at the beginning of the turn, if you receive any of those. So turn 1, you will not need to worry about that as you don't have any casualty units. So my neighbor thought that was pretty funny. All right. If you hear music in the background, that is a Bridge Too Far soundtrack. So let's kick this thing off, shall we? All right. Reinforcement and reformed unit phase. General player consults the turn record track. Places any reinforcements scheduled to arrive during this game turn in a zone C. In zone C. Well, if we check 16.1, let's roll 2 dice, shall we? And that is an 11, and that's nothing. So we don't have to worry about reinforcement, and we don't get any reformed units. That brings us to the random events determination phase. The British player, I'll be the British player, okay? The British player rolls 2 dice and consults the random events table printed on the board. What did we get? We got a 9. What does that mean? That means nothing. Nothing. The curious thing now is, okay. That brings us to the movement fire phase. Both players alternate movement and or fire impulses, whichever player currently possesses the tactical advantage proceeding first until both sides have passed. So I being the British, will get the first go. Can move or fire. Only uncommitted, oh, everybody's uncommitted. that. Units to move. I don't think I need to be moving much as the British thus far. Units fired. So if a unit is to fire, it may direct its fire at any group of enemy units occupying the same or adjacent area. Exception, armor units. And we remember that rule because infantry must be in the same area as armor to attack it. I think unless you're an anti-tank gun. Now, that brings us to the filliness. If a player chooses to fire more than one unit from an area, he can do that in any order he wishes. The only requirements are that any one defending area may be the subject of only one fire attack per impulse, and no more than 6 infantry units, plus 1 additional headquarter unit, plus 3 armor may fire into it. Only one fire attack. Okay. Let's do for instance here, let me fire, let's say, give me this helps me. Keep track of what I'm doing because I get distracted. Let's say this area here, this area being 16, is going to fire at area 15, and that is 3 paratrooper units firing at 3 units of 10th Recce. Let's see what happens if I do that. Arm units may be fired. Attacks resolved by determining the attack value of firing units and comparing it with the defense value. Attack value is equal to the attack factor of any one firing unit. Well, they're all the same, so it doesn't matter which one I choose. So if I choose him, that's just a 4. We flip him. And then plus 1 for each additional was 5. That makes 6. Does it not? So that's 6. Plus the sum roll of 2 dice. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Turn this to keep track. So our attack value is 12. Plus 1 of 3 of the firing infantry units have the same. Do we have the same? Did I do that here? Or we have the same organization? I don't see 7. I'm going to guess they're not because of the way I did this. Ah, they're not. So we missed a plus 1 because they're not all. There's no unit integrity there. That brings us to the defense value is equal to the lowest face-up defense factor of the group. Attack factor is the first number. The defense factor is the second number. That's going to be a 6. Sum roll of 2 dice. This sounds familiar. Gift me 2 dice. So that's, let's say that's 6. And now we're at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Uh-oh. That doesn't sound good. 14 because you're adding 1 because we're being fired at from an adjacent area. The attack value is equal or less. Alright, well, defense value is 14 and attack value is 12, which results in nothing. Other than these 3 units being committed. And that brings us to German impulse. Now they could do is they could drop some artillery here. Actually, the British could have and can do the same thing, possibly. Okay, they cannot. This guy, well, who can do this? So we have to have a headquarters unit adjacent to some British. I don't see that currently being the issue. So we'll just do a straight up attack. Now, let's try this. Let's fire back the units that were just fired at German-wise. Let's fire back and see what happens if you fire, if there's anything that happens when you fire on a unit that is uncommitted. I don't remember if there is or not. I'm not sure. So that would be 4. That makes 5 and 6. Also, firing back there. Let's roll 2 dice. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 again. So they have an attack value of 12. Oh, do they have the same? Do we have unit integrity here? Yes, they do. So that's 13. You know what I need? I need something I can keep track of with my numbers. 13. Yeah? Alright. What do we have? So their attack value is 13. Let's roll for defense. Now, this is where is equal to the lowest face-up defense factor. Well, that would be 4 of the group being fired on, plus some roll 2 dice, and that is an 8, 19, 11, 12. And plus 2 with the firing units is in an adjacent area, so that brings it to 14. So that's nothing. May need to be moving in and doing some close combat stuff. So that resulted in nothing as well. Now it's back to the British. What do the British want to do? The British want to take a drink of Guinness. A cuppa. Again, as the British, I'm content where I'm at for now. So I'm not too concerned with moving and consolidating, etc. But as far as sussing out the most immediate threats, you know what? Let's roll this way. Let's go here. See how we can do in this respect. So that is going to be 4, and we don't have unit integrity, so it's 4, 5, 6, 7. Roll 2 dice. Oh Jesus! 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. What is it with the? Nobody can do better than 12. Defense value is 3. Plus 2 dice. That's 9, 10. Uh-oh. Plus 1. If the firing unit is in J 11, so guess what? In this respect, the attack value is in fact greater than the defensive value by 1, so there's 1 casualty point that needs to be taken care of. Each unit retreated out of the target area or zone is worth 1 casualty point, so that's easily enough taken care of. If we just pull him back, that satisfies our casualty point tally. I don't think you haven't affected stacking there because you can have up to 10 infantry and 3 armor, so we're good there. So we actually did a wee bit of damage there. Nope, that's the wrong area. We need to pull him back and to satisfy, so this, we can't go there because that's adjacent. So let me check real quick on his. Units must move to an adjacent non-enemy infantry. Area not adjacent to an enemy occupied area. So in order for me to retreat, I can't retreat here because this is adjacent to an enemy occupied area while this one is not. So given the option, if you have the option, you need to do so. And having done so, does he become committed? Does he not? Units that have fired or moved, including units that have retreated, do become committed. So, you know what? I'm not, he's at headquarters. I'm not going to retreat him. I'm going to retreat him. And go like that. Alright, so that's that. What about moving some units into that is, oh, it's a German impulse now, and they want to move, I think. So move to any area not adjacent to or occupied in it, to any area adjacent to an enemy. Two movement factors to adjacent to an enemy occupied area. I got plenty of movement factors. What does it cost to move it into? Costs 4 movement factors to enter an area during a day turn which is occupied by an enemy unit. 2 to move into a. This is vacant, so that would be 2. This would be 4. That would be 6. They have a movement factor of 8, so no problems there. Except now they're committed, and just because I am somewhat anal, I'm going to designate that area as German occupied since they moved through it, just for my own peace of mind. That's all, the only reason I'm doing that. And now is the British impulse again. And what are we at time-wise? If this thing goes too long, it'll never upload. That's my life. We got another good 15-20 minutes here. Well, I mean, you know what I'm going to do, right? It's just obvious. I'm going to try and knock out some of these uncommitted, or these committed rather, German units that just moved in there. Let's see. Except this isn't the close combat phase. So we have to wait before we can attack them because that only happens in the close combat phase. Well, that brings up a question. Could they then move out of here since they moved in there? I don't think they can. I think there's a restriction there. Units moved in the unit may only move into So infantry units starting their move already in an enemy occupied area may only move one area or zone during that impulse. And you I think about it. Do I want to hang here? I don't think I do. I think I'm moving. I'm moving here. Call me crazy, but that's what I'm doing. These guys are now committed to their relationship. Committed. Well, this then will become German controlled. And again, this doesn't affect victory points, but it affects my psyche, so I'm keeping track of it. So that's that. Now it's the Germans' turn again. And maybe you guys are starting to get just a bit of feel of how this is going. They could have easily done, because of the way they do back and forth, chip pull, but that's fine. You know, I'm partial to that, and that's easily implemented. But I do like that. I wouldn't like this if it was British do everything, then the Germans, or vice versa. The Germans do everything, and then the British. So it works out nicely here. Germans' turn again. Now we have these guys up here doing nothing. Let's move them adjacent. I don't know if we'll put them right here, because they can't do anything up there, right? Pull them down. Hell. And guess what? You guessed it. This is now, this little block now speaks German. Back to the British. And the British say, I will see your movement and raise you some fire. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm moving these guys just to have them grouped together so I can see them easily. So that would be 4 plus 1 is 5 plus 1 is 6 plus 1 is 7, and we don't have unit integrity. We will roll 2 dice. Oh geez, 8, 9, 10, 11, that's pitiful. I don't do anything unless the Germans flub their roll, so that's 11. That's it, that's 11. Alright, 3 and 2 dice is, yeah, that figures. That's 12 already, so it's already nothing without even adding the rest of the factors, so that didn't work. Back to the Germans. What do the Germans have to say about this? Lederhosen, that's what they have to say. What about, you know what? Let's see what kind of antics we can pull off here. Where's my little keep track of things arrow? And see what they do. So we've got, again, a 4. I think I'm probably wasting my time doing this. 5, 6. What we need to be doing is moving in anticipation of close combat. That seems where the heavy casualty points are going to be taking place. So again, I've already talking. 6, right? So why do I have these on blocks? Aesthetics. That's the only reason. There's no functional use. And I feel a little more tactile when you move them and stuff. Again, I forgot what I was saying. See how easily I forget 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, guess what? A 12. Who would have thunk it? Alright, and then that leaves, what, 3? Do they become committed when they defend? I don't believe they do. Alright, so that's 3 is our defense value plus 2 dice. It's 8, 9, 10. Plus 1 is 11. Well, I'll be darned. There's a casualty point inflicted. If I retreat, I can satisfy that. And let's just go ahead and do that. Pull him down here. He then becomes committed. So there's some slow development, but some development nonetheless. That brings us back to the British. We're now at 40 minutes of run time. Kick this down the road a little bit further. You know, what I could do is come back and film a part 2. So we'll see how it goes. What's the British want to do? What do you think? What do you think? You know what I think? I think these guys know. Yeah. You'll also notice when it deals with where the file I got this map from, you'll see a thin black line, and a thin black line. Those don't have any bearing on the game as far as the areas. Those are actually the creases or folds in the map board that was left when they photocopied this, whoever did it. So it can be a little distracting, but you gotta kind of pay attention to what you're doing and you'll be fine. So these are what is that, engineering unit? Is that what we get? What is this? What are you? Yeah, Royal Engineers. So we got a couple Royal Engineers on the HQ. So we got a 5, a 6, and a 7. Excuse me. 7, mark this. Where's the 7? There's the 7. We're gonna roll 2 dice, right? Ooh, 6, 7, 8, 9. That brings us 16. That's some good stuff right there. 16. How do the Germans respond to that? Well, are they gonna defense value of 3, roll 2 dice. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Ooh, we got some stuff happening here, and +1 because they're being fired at from adjacent area. That becomes 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we have 4 casualty points here that need to be satisfied, and only 3 units in that area. So even if we retreated all 3 of them, that would satisfy all but 1 of our casualty points. So we will in fact need to expunge 1 of these guys to satisfy 3 of our casualty points. And then if we retreat 1, that, let's see, he will retreat here. That will satisfy the other casualty point, which makes 4. And that was pretty darn good shooting for the Royal Engineers. Which I guess is to be expected. 1st Parachute Squadron, Royal Engineers, good work. That brings us back to the Germans. We're now at 44 minutes of runtime. Let's see what the Germans can do with this. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of those areas where they're only area 24 and area 25 are only adjacent via this joined corner, which means they're not adjacent. So they can't fire at units in area 24. What they can do is if we move here, then they will be able to, and that'll take care of that. That brings us back to the British. What are the British doing? What are y'all doing? What are you guys even doing right now? think this could be interesting. Let's try this. Let's go, we got a headquarters, some more engineers, as well as some paratroopers. So we'll take this 5 and add 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? Did I do that correctly? Roll 2 dice. Oh wow, I rolled a 3. That's terrible. That brings us to 13, which is not as impressive as I thought it would be. If 3 of the units have the same, we do. So we get some integrity here. Unit integrity. That brings it to 14. Now, as far as these guys go, we're looking at a defense of 6. Roll 2 dice. That's 12, 3, 4, nothing. We've already reached 15, and that's without any modifier. So that results in Nishta, or nothing. Back to the Germans. Back to the Germans. Just start moving. What if we move, I'm going to move these guys here. These guys here. And I know I haven't done any artillery yet. There's no reason for that. I just haven't done it. That brings us back to the British. And what we got left here? We've got 2. So as far as what the British can do at this point, we have, take that back. We have 3 potential areas left that can fire. Otherwise, there's nothing else we can do. We being the British. So we have units here that can fire, that would be 1. Units here that can fire, that would be 2. And units here that can fire, that would be 3. Except they can't because this is armor. And you have to be in the same zone. Well, you could move. But I don't know if I want to move there. No, I'm not moving there. So that's out. That leaves these 2 areas. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do much there, but this guy... Let's give this a shot here. Pun intended. A 3, and a full, and a 5, and a 6. And we have unit integrity, so that's good. 6. Roll 2 dice. And we get a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, which is ridiculous. Plus 1 for unit integrity is 12. What a mess. 6. Yeah, that's nothing. So that's out. And then back to the Germans. No, I don't want to do that. Can these guys all start flooding? I think they can. Got all these guys on the perimeters that are need to start moving. Make sure I do that correctly. Movement. What's there? That's a 5. Checking to see if there's any weird anomalies regarding movement from a perimeter zone to an area. I'm going to make sure I do this right. just roll through. So, alright. Any area not adjacent to occupied or occupied by enemy unit is 1. So that would be 1, 2, and then how much is it for? To enter any area unoccupied by zone. So it's 2 to move from the zone. So it would be 2. Bear with me here. 3, and then 5. So it would be 5 to move here. Do they have that? They do not. Well, this guy doesn't. So he would have to stop here. He is not permitted. These guys got it. These guys being these guys. So let's move them. Let's get this show on the road here. So the on-map units are the units in the areas that at the game start were all SS units. The units that I'm moving into areas now are just Warmot stuff, not SS units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Keeping track of my stacking here. 9. And we want to leave that for the headquarters unit to move there, so that means I'm only 3 armored. Let's pull these guys up here. 1. Here's our 3 armored. And these are all moving from the same perimeter, so this all counts as one impulse. And then it'll go back to the British, who I think have nothing more they want to do. Or can do, because if you want to, again, if it's a British, if you want to use artillery, you have to be adjacent, an uncommitted unit adjacent, headquarters unit rather. And I don't have that. So, the only thing that I can do, and I guess we could do this just to see what kind of wonders we can roll with the dice, would be to fire these guys. 3. This is probably a stupid waste of time. 4. If we get a really good dice roll though, and we 9, 10, that's junk. They have 3 dice. Ooh, it's only a 5. Hold on. Wait a minute. It's only a 5. You see that? You see what I just saw? That's a 6. They only got a 6. So it worked out 7, 8, 9, 10. So the same deal. 4 casualty points inflicted, which means we're going to have to get rid of one of these guys and retreat 1. So how do you like them apples? That worked out alright, huh? Back to the Germans. Always with the Germans, right? We got these guys that have done nothing. So we have 1, 2, 3 4 areas that have done nothing, and another whole other perimeter of guys that need to move up. I'm not going to waste on-camera time moving that perimeter up. What I am going to do is I'm going to fire at these guys. Why not? 4, 5, 6, and unit integrity makes 7. Roll 3 dice. Wow. That is 19. Holy shnikes. Alright, then 5. Ooh, another good roll. 10, 16. Both sides just rolled really well. And adjacent makes 17. So 2 casualty points inflicted here. And I can satisfy those easily with retreats. Let's go 1, 2. And that's that. What does that leave? That leaves these guys, which have done nothing, so they need to move. What is armor units? So what if we go? I'm gonna put this guy right here. Can't move any more armor there or there. With this headquarters unit, what do I want to do with this? Let's put in here. You know what? I could put. Let's move this here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's gonna be 7, 8. I'm counting my stacking. 9. So those guys are moved. And then I pull in 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to go, well, you've skipped the British. Yeah, I've moved a few Germans and consecutively now because the British really don't have anything else they can do. I'm staying pat, so. And then finally, what I want to do with these guys, it would be, what is it? Let me go back here. Enter adjacent, enter non-adjacent. 1, 2, no, that's adjacent, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But they got the factors to do it, so let's do it. Open here and here. And then finally what I'll do is move these guys in the perimeter up, but I'm not going to do that on camera. So that's it for right now. Again, hopefully you guys got a little bit of a taste, feel, flavor for this. You want to roll well, that's for sure. And I think close combat's where it's at. You hang back and fire into an adjacent zone. I don't know how effective that's really that is. And then let's just play the rest of the turn out. Then you would have the close combat phase, right? And we would have, we do have close combat that would occur here. And then after that we would have victory point determination phase. So I think the Germans at the end of this turn are going to lose a couple victory points. And that's where it stands. So, alright you guys, I'm going to let you go. Thanks for hanging out and watching. And as usual, stay safe, stay healthy. And anything else you want to add, suggest, comment on, feel free to do so at the bottom of the video. And some of you, you may feel like, you know, if you put one comment, that's all you're allowed. I don't know where that rule comes from. Put 2, 3, 4, 5, half a dozen comments. I don't care. So. Alright, you guys. I'll cut you loose. Talk to you next time.